the powerful accountable from Washington, D.C. to right here in southern New England. This is 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti.
Good morning, everybody. Hope your weekend's going fine. I'm Gene Valicenti. This is 10 News Conference. Joining me in studio this morning is Rhode Island Congressman Gabe Amo, who wants another shot at the 1st District. He's only been in for a short period of time. He filled the balance of Congressman Cicilline's seat, but now it's a full term, provided he gets past his opponent. Congressman Amo, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Gene.
Nice to see you again. It's only been, you were telling me, 10 months.
Yes,
okay,
November 13th.
I guess, listen, it's a sweet spot. You haven't had a lot of time to get in any trouble. No controversies. But I guess you haven't had a lot of time for a lot of accomplishments, although you said there's something you could tell me about. So what is it?
So I've been actually really productive as a member of Congress for the past 10 plus months. I've got my first piece of legislation through committee. It's called the Lift AI Act, that is to put forward literacy for artificial intelligence for our teachers and students to have a foundational knowledge. I've also gotten amendments passed through the National Defense Authorization that happens every single year to invest in undersea underwater drone technology here in Rhode Island that's going to create jobs. So I've been working as hard as I can on my two committees, Foreign Affairs and Science, Space, and Technology, to deliver for Rhode Islanders whenever I've had the chance. And I've also been able to secure millions of dollars in earmarks, as they're called, for projects across the district. So I hit the ground running as promised.
All right. Well, listen, you have Jack Reed's help. Right? Jack Reed's the master at bringing the bacon back. Are these things he said, let me put your name on this, help you out here a little bit.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Okay. All right. But I'm getting at, it's like, well, what could a freshman Democrat do for Rhode Island? Freshman to only 2 seats in a Republican-controlled Congress. You would tell me what?
Yes, I would tell you, if you are me and you have the background that I have, having worked for 2 presidents, having worked for the Biden-Harris administration, I work the phones. And it's a team effort with the delegation. So when I look at projects like getting $125 million for the Washington Bridge, certainly Jack, Senator Reed takes the lead. But I was working the phones too. When I think about all of the projects that we have ahead of us and all of the letters of support we put forward to get resources, that's what I do. And additionally, I bring the face of Rhode Island to people across this country when I'm on that floor in the House. So we're hitting the ground running, but I need more time. And that's why I'm asking for the support of Rhode Islanders again, humbly, so that I continue to work for them in the legacy of our great delegation. It
wasn't that long that you were here, so let's remind the viewers why you're here again. You served out the balance of Congressman Cicilline's seat when he left to run the Rhode Island Foundation. So that's been just over 10 months. We've got another month to go till the election, so it'll be a full year, I guess, right? November to November.
Exactly.
So now you're up for a full term, another 2 years, which is not that long in congressional, every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
You come back for this, so that's why you're here. Since you placed yourself in the White House, you worked for Governor Raimondo, and then you worked for President Biden, and you left the White House before the coup, before the swap.
I did.
Before he was pressured to leave, Nancy Pelosi and company, right? We all saw it happen before our own eyes. Should I hold you responsible for some degree for not being honest with us and telling us that the president was impaired, not up to the job, not cognitively up to the job? Because, that's the rap on people who were around him for a while.
Well, I find that erroneous. When I look at the record of accomplishment from President Biden, historic legislation pulled us back from the COVID-19 pandemic. The economy, we're talking about jobs numbers today, 250,000 jobs created over the last month. S&P is up, inflation is down. The record is very clear about the economics and also preserving our values abroad in supporting Ukraine in that illegal war that Putin is waging. So when I left the White House, I left the president who was working hard and will continue to work hard until January 20th. But now we have a vice president in Kamala Harris who is ready to take that baton and put a new way forward.
All right, boy, you've learned a lot. You know how to take a question and run with it. But let me refocus. Now, you were there working for President Biden, and we all saw this happen. He bombed the debate. He was stumbling around, mumbling around, and at a certain point, Nancy Pelosi and company had said, Joe, you've got to go. You're not up to the job. And so he fought it. I'm not leaving, but he was kicked out, wasn't he?
Well,
wasn't he kicked to the curb?
I would say there was a short 2-week period. I think our memories need to be jogged a little bit, because when we look at that debate, which was not good, I think everybody knows that, He took 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, he came to a decision that it was a patriotic decision, putting love for country above self, to step aside and let his governing partner, the vice president, take over. And you see the enthusiasm. People are excited. And we are going to be very successful this November.
Give me a little bit here. Come on. He was fighting it. They're not going to kick me out. I know they think I'm too old. They're not going to kick me out. Well, you know what? They knocked on his door. Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, Barack Obama to some degree. And they said, it's up, Joe. You have to go. And he reluctantly left. And they did the swap out with Kamala, who had lower ratings than he did. Well, let's give a little. You give a little, I'll give a little.
Well, look,
it's up to the history writers.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Exactly. History is going to judge this later. And look, it's a complicated gumbo of decision making and actors, but ultimately he made the right decision. That's all that matters to me. And what matters is that we focus on Americans, not just the folks who hold office, but the impact on the people in Rhode Island and across the country who need a leader, someone who is focused on them, someone who is not worrying about past disputes like the 45th president of the United States.
Kamala Harris, her ratings at one point were lower than the president's, even when he was underwater in those terrible surveys that were coming out month after month. And now, just as you and I tape on a Friday, CNN is basically saying, Trump may have a lock on the Electoral College. It could go to Trump. Would you concede that? It's going to be very, very close.
Oh, it's going to be a close election.
It may not go to him, but it's going to be very close.
It will be a close election, Gene. I make no mistake about it. The folks on both sides of this, the Harris campaign, the Trump campaign, are working hard to get to voters because people are pretty locked in to their opinions. It's why I've spent some time working to get the energy up here in Rhode Island and in other parts of the country as well, because it is a clear contrast to me. The vice president is talking about investing in the American people, housing opportunities, small business growth. The former president is bumbling and lobbying insults that have never been heard at the presidential level, beneath the dignity of that office. So I wish it weren't close, but that's where it is. And ultimately, I believe the vice president will win. If you look at those polls go up, polls go down. And if you look at the battleground state, she's doing very well, but there's a lot of a ball game to be played before this is called.
Why is he doing better than why is he, well, I want to phrase this the right way. Kamala Harris still leads with African Americans. She still leads with Latinos. But he is doing better in those two groups. He has cut her lead substantially. Why is that?
I think it's a function of two things. One, he's been the president of the United States. He has a very high name recognition. He is known, he has a brand. I think the second piece of it is that, he's throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks on a range of issues. And so we see wild inconsistencies. He's the one who professes that he saved Roe v. Wade. He said he was the best environmental president ever. He talks about his successes as if he's the second coming. But I think that there's a lot of ambiguity in what he says, and this is why we need clarity of message and focus from the vice president, because Kamala Harris has a distinguished record of leadership, and I believe that she is going to articulate that more and more, and people are starting to vote now. I think the choices are clarifying, and when you see what he is doing at his rallies that not a lot of people are going to, and you see what she is putting forward, I think it's very clear.
It's going to be a heavy lift to unseat you. You are favored in this. You have an opponent. We'll hear from him coming up in just a second. If she gets in, it's better for you. But if he gets in, that changes your world upside down. Well, as a freshman Democrat with a Republican president.
Well, Democrats are on track, and I believe will do the work to win the House of Representatives. That's the firewall. And so Speaker Hakeem Jeffries presents the last line to ensuring that the Project 2025 agenda doesn't move forward. And I have had a record of working with Democrats and Republicans in my career. You remember, I worked at the White House, serving the president to work with mayors and governors across the country, whether they were Democrats or Republicans. So it is in my record, but I am optimistic, cautiously so, that won't be what I'm dealing with come January.
Let's take a quick break. You've raised a couple of issues. Let me attach a couple of footnotes to them, and then let's talk about really what you're going to do for Rhode Island if you get this. If you get reelected, you get a full term. Right back after this.
Thank you for turning to 10, your news leader. 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti continues right now.
He's still a young progressive, and progressivism, people are starting to know because they're suffering at their kitchen tables what the progressives bring.
That's Alan Waters. He's the Republican running against you. Alan is a perennial candidate, but he says he thinks he can take you out this time because you're a progressive, he's a conservative, he's better than you philosophically. What would you say to Alan?
Democracy is a great thing.
Yeah.
But I think we have to be honest when we participate in this democracy. I'm a pragmatist. I'm someone who people don't focus on labeling. They focus on the results of my work. They focus on my background, where I've come from. They focus on my experience and what I'm working on in Congress. So labels are secondary to performance.
Yeah.
And Rhode Islanders know that I am working hard every day. You track me on social media.
Yeah.
When I wake up in Rhode Island, I end late at night, and I try to see as many Rhode Islanders every day to hear what I can do to be effective for them. So that's where my focus is, and labels are meaningless to me.
I had Alan in a couple of weeks ago. I'm having you in. It's sort of an election interview. Play the other soundbite we have with Alan Waters, and we'll listen to this. You can react.
We have a new congressman who hasn't even served a full term yet, and as the first African-American congressman for the state of Rhode Island, who would ever run against him? The second black congressman, that's me, Alan Waters.
But
I'm a Republican, but most importantly, I'm a conservative. But even more importantly than that, I'm a fourth-generation Rhode Islander, and I'm just a common man politician.
Alan, by the way, is a very likable person. Have you met him? Have you guys chatted?
Once or twice, briefly.
And what do you make of what he just said there?
I am a common man as they come. I'm the son of a liquor store owner and a nurse. There's nothing more common man like that than that. And I would say that I may be new, but I'm working hard and I'm tested. I've worked in government at the heights of government, and I've had the experience of the term so far. So I'm really happy to put forward a positive vision, positive message about how we'll continue to work for Rhode Islanders, and I look forward to talking about that until November 5th.
You mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned Project 2025. Donald Trump bristles when Democrats bring that up. He said, I don't know, it's not my plan. I don't know why you keep saying, even one of the authors of Project 2025 on one of the cable news shows said, it's not Donald Trump's, it's ours. We're a think tank, not him. Why do you keep bringing that up?
Because that's a lie. Donald Trump lies all the time. This is his pattern of behavior. He was for it before he was against it. They were great ideas, then there were bad ideas. He saw the approval ratings. He's into popularity, clearly. And he saw one of the lowest approval ratings for anything in America right now is Project 2025. I would disavow it too if I were him.
So when
but
he
J.D. Vance, his best friends, best allies, working on it. He flew with this guy on his private jet. These are lies. Okay,
listen, you're running. You also mentioned abortion. Donald Trump says, listen, I got rid of Roe v. Wade at the federal level. I kicked it back to the states. There are certain exceptions I go along with. It was just a maneuver to get it back to the states where it belongs.
That is a horrible way to view health care. Abortion is about health care. We live in a country where it should not matter whether you live in Texas, whether you live in Maine, whether you live in Rhode Island or California, for you to get the health care you deserve. You've seen these stories of the women whose doctors are afraid of penalties, who have had to travel across multiple states, like Amber Thurman, and die. This is consequential. This is not about political games. He wants to play games. This is about life and death and freedoms. And Donald Trump has only disrupted freedoms for people and women in this country.
You know, Rhode Island is very different from some other states far away from us. And they think the way they do, and we think the way we do. And we codified a woman's right to an abortion here. So why would you press that issue? Donald Trump says, leave it up to the people of the state, wherever that might be, Deep South, Midwest. They want what they want, and we got what we got.
We are the United States of America, e pluribus unum, out of many, one. Your rights in one state should not disappear if you go to another state. That is fundamental to our country. This is a position that Donald Trump has put forward that is dangerous. You know, my race should not change and its impact on how people treat me in one state versus another, just like the health care for a woman should not change based on the state that they live in.
Okay, let's do a lightning round. Time is limited, but let's bang through them really quick. The border. Kamala Harris is underwater on the border issue. No matter how many times she screams about Donald Trump derailing a bill, she's underwater on that. The polls show it. The border. How are you going to fix it?
Well, we're going to pass the bipartisan legislation that Donald Trump 86th. He told his Republican friends in the House, do not move it. even though a conservative Republican, James Langford, authored it with Democrats. We're going to pass that bill. More Border Patrol agents, an orderly asylum process, and making sure that we give the president the power to close the border when crossings exceed a certain number.
Donald Trump and the Republicans would say that was a bad bill that allowed for 5,000 crossings per day before we closed it.
Crossings are down for 6 months straight.
Right, but that was their argument. It allowed for a certain amount of crossings per day before you close it. All right, let's keep moving. The war in Gaza. Should we let Israel run everything over, finish it once and for all, or do we put the brakes on it today? Where do you stand?
No, look, I think Benjamin Netanyahu has not run an effective war. We need to certainly deal with Hamas. Deal with Hamas and their terrorism. And I know that Israel is also dealing with Hezbollah and the Houthis and Iran, who, with a grand alliance, we stop them from harming Israel. But we need to move towards a ceasefire, a negotiated ceasefire that is permanent, lasting, so we can have a two-state solution, security and humanitarian assistance where it's necessary.
All right, well, listen, let's just talk about Benjamin Netanyahu for a second. Israel's fighting on 7 different fronts. Israel took out the past 3 leaders of Hamas. Number 1, number 2, number 3. They don't last a week. And we helped Israel defend itself against those incoming missiles just last week. 200 of them. U.S. missile defense systems were employed. So how was he not running it right?
Well, you just identified it. U.S. missile systems. It was partnership. What he's doing in Gaza is not in the spirit of partnership. The Palestinians who are suffering there don't deserve the outcomes that they are experiencing. Death, disease. So what we need is to bring together regional partners, bring together a negotiated end to the hostilities, and surge humanitarian assistance. That is what a leader does. He has not spoken to an end to that conflict, and that is what is missing from what he's putting forward now.
You're not
and hostages being returned.
You're not happy with him, but you still support Israel.
Israel's
would
our
come to
democratic
Israel's
ally.
aid. Okay.
Yeah, Israel is our democratic ally.
Let's go to Ukraine. Donald Trump called Zelensky the greatest salesman in the world. Every time he comes here, he goes back with billions. Would you give more money to him?
To President Zelensky?
Ukraine.
Look, I think we have to make sure that they are positioned for victory. This is why I call for a lifting on the restrictions of long-range missiles to hit targets within Russia, because we have to put Ukraine on a path to victory. But we do need to potentially support them with additional resources if that time comes. That request hasn't been made, and as a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, I will review it when it comes.
All right, 30 seconds left. I'll give you the last word. The most important thing you're going to do for Rhode Island, if you get past Alan Waters and you go back, would be what?
Well, I'm going to cheat. I mean, I've got 2 things. One, we are going to...
you have the last word. Go ahead.
We're going to get the funding for the remainder of the Washington Bridge. I know that people are feeling the pain acutely, and we will support those efforts. The second thing that I will do is continue to invest in jobs and the economy here. I have been a champion for the blue economy, and I want to do everything I can to grow jobs here for generations of Rhode Islanders, to make our country strong, to make our state as innovative as it's ever been.
You don't have any, just a footnote, you don't have any concerns about not getting enough funding for the bridge.
Well,
it sounds like Jack Reed's on top of it.
Well, look, he is our leader, and I will follow him as we do everything we can to support that problem that I hear about every single day.
Democrat Gabe Amo, you're up for re-election in Rhode Island's 1st District. Good luck. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Gene.